What's up, everybody? Just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's had me in their thoughts and prayers. I'm going to be all right.
We're not a big team, we're young, so we just got to play with a chip in the shoulder, and hopefully we can make big things and be one of the best teams in the East.
I think I do okay. Would have been better if we got the win, but I mean, it's the first game, so we have many more to go.
This is an important game for me because it's an opportunity for me to go out there and kind of close that chapter. I don't think that chapter has been closed yet.
A smattering of news from around the NBA. That's where we'll begin on this Thursday. That is Robin. I am Maggie, but I'm thinking about changing my name to Giannis.
You don't like, you can't go Greek freak, though.
No, I can't go Greek freak. Giannis Gray, though, might have a ring to it. I don't think I could even attempt to do Antetokounmpo. What a season debut for the Greek freak. 37 points, 16 of them came in the fourth quarter in a win over the Celtics. Giannis recently spoke to our colleague Sean Gregory from Time Magazine. He said he accepted the Mamba Challenge. Oh, yes, from Kobe Bryant. Kobe challenged him to win MVP, and Giannis, Robin, thinks he can do it. Do you?
Yeah, I think he definitely is in the top three when it comes to that conversation. I would have LeBron, Giannis, and Kawhi Leonard. Those are the guys who sort of stand out individually on their team without another teammate. And I'll go this far with Giannis. I mean, just such a physical freak. I mean, it's right in the nickname. If the NBA were to be starting from scratch and every team was drafting expansion style from the available pool of players, and you're thinking about constructing a team for the long term, I'm pretty sure Giannis would be my #1 overall pick.
Yeah, first of all, that's also one of my favorite games to play, the redraft and start a team all from scratch. I think you have to even start with KD. I mean, look at what he said there. He could end up being the best player to ever play. If you really wanted it, they're basically saying that the guy has no ceiling. I said this a few days ago. I think that if Giannis leads the Bucks to 50 wins, he could absolutely win the MVP. He led last season 5 statistical categories. That is a very good foundation from which to then go and jump to MVP of the league. I think he actually will be battling LeBron James for that MVP title. I think in the Western Conference, a lot of votes are going to get split. But I think that Giannis would, judging by his season debut, I think he'd be a very good MVP.
And if you talk about the impact on a team as well, if Giannis can add an outside shot, look out. And if the Bucks can add a shooter and a guard who can break down the defense, I see them jumping the Wizards and the Raptors and maybe even the Celtics, considering the current circumstances, and being that other team in the Eastern Conference.
Well, you say improve the shot. I mean, he's hovering around 30% from beyond the arc, which is good. If you get to about, 34, 35%?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's basically the elite, getting to elite considering all the other tools he has in his toolbox. And they're talking about, he's hitting about maybe 32% from long twos. I'm like, why even take a long two? Who's doing that anymore?
Go all the way to the cup or take the three. We learned that from the Rockets a while ago. We mentioned the Celtics before. It's been a rough start to the season for them. Of course, they lost Gordon Hayward, likely for the season, and they lost again last night with Kyrie Irving going just 7 for 25 for 17 points and 3 assists. Is it too early to think the season may be getting away from Kyrie in Boston?
What is this, our hot take, smart take segment? This is a total hot take. And, no, I mean, it's way too early to tell. And I know that Kyrie had a bad game, and obviously they're on a back-to-back. They are on the road to play the Cavaliers. It was a tight game, actually, and then they go home. I think still a lot of emotion by losing Gordon Hayward, and you're asking a lot of very young guys to step up. I think they are going to rise to the occasion. It's going to be a really young team. Obviously, we know well coached, but I think they're going to figure it out. I mean, when you are looking at one of your rookies and you're expecting 37 minutes a night from a Jason Tatum, I mean, it's going to take a little while to get used to that.
I love their young players, but Hayward was easily their best two-way wing player. And with Irving, this is part of the problem. One of the issues I had with him wanting to be the guy is I'm not sure he can do it consistently. We're going to talk baseball a little later in the show. I'll make a baseball analogy for Kyrie Irving. He's like the designated hitter who has tons of power but strikes out a lot. So he's not helping you defensively on the other end. And if he's striking out, he's not helping you on either end, so he's not really a positive value player. His value comes when he's taking you yards. So you might get 40 home runs from him out of the season, like you might get 40-point games from Kyrie Irving, but the rest of the time, I don't think he's touching that superstar level.
Yeah, I guess the consistency is something that he might have to work on this year, but especially now with Hayward not there, he's going to be shooting in volume. He was already going to do that. He's going to be doing it even more. Well, they may not have won the game, but plenty to like from the 76ers, including a stellar debut from the 2016 #1 overall pick, Ben Simmons. He finished with 18 points, 10 rebounds. 10 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, I'll get there, and just 1 turnover. Here's his coach, Brett Brown. He was really good last night. Let's listen to his coach.
You know, there were times that you thought he could have finished even more. But I feel that his first game was really exceptional. So I thought he was really good tonight.
His growth path, improvement scale, off the charts. Next slide, please. Are the 76ers more than just a fun team to watch, Robin? Can they be contenders?
Sure, I'm not contenders yet, but they can get to the Eastern Conference playoffs, which is a huge jump from where they've been. You know, outside of LeBron in the East, I mentioned Giannis before. The other intriguing team going forward is Philadelphia. Barring injury, they have top flight talent. You know, Embiid and Simmons are special kind of players. We'll see what we get from Fultz. Covington is a nice player for them as well on both ends. Philadelphia's ceiling is very, very high with the current group that they have. As far as where they're at right now, I think what you're hoping for is to see them take that step and get themselves into the playoff mix.
I mean, if you're hearing Brett Brown last night, he's talking like they basically won the game. I mean, and that's probably a good thing, right? They hang in a game against the Wizards, one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, we believe. And I like what he said, where he said he believes now it's just about tightening up the small things. This is not about whole-scale changes and having to put in huge concepts. At this point, it's about the little things. And that always seems to me like the final sort of step in the process, capital T, capital P. It will be to just make this team a tight team and an efficient team. And I think they have the tools there. Also very interesting that Joel Embiid ended up playing, I believe, 27 minutes last night after he said it was bleeping BS that he was going to be on some kind of minutes restriction. So that's something to monitor going forward.
You'd rather him play 40, I think is
so.
What you're looking for if you're a Sixers fan. Simmons and Fultz are a couple of those fun Sixers we mentioned, but just a couple of the high-profile rookies this season. There were also impressive debuts from De'Aaron Fox, Dylan Brooks, and Dennis Smith Jr., who became the youngest player ever to have a points-assist double-double in his first game. Last guy to do it at an age that was close to that was Jason Kidd when Smith passed him last night. And, of course, Lonzo Ball starts his season tonight. Which rookie are you most excited about?
I'm still going to go with Jason Tatum. I think it's because we've seen 2 games from him now, and I know he had a minus 18 last night, but I'm not sure that tells the entire story. I mean, first 2 games, he was +6 in the opener, 14 points, 10 rebounds, played 37 minutes in each game. He's going to be called upon in crunch time, which I think is such the hallmark of what a team thinks about you as a rookie, to leave you out there in these big situations. The 2 losses for Boston don't bother me as much. They're adjusting, but I think that they will be one of the top teams in the Eastern Conference, obviously, even with Hayward's injury, and I think Tatum is going to be a big part of it.
I'm very excited to watch Lonzo Ball because of everything that goes along with him. And if the Lakers get better, the NBA gets better. But to me, Ben Simmons is easily the most exciting rookie to watch. And I think he's the runaway favorite for Rookie of the Year. He's a special physical talent. He also sees the floor well. He was driving to the cup last night. He was dropping off dishes. And we may get to a point where it's a fun argument. Who's the better prospect, Simmons or Embiid on Philadelphia?
They'll be splitting not Rookie of the Year votes, but they'll be splitting votes for something. And we're pleased to welcome All-Pro linebacker, renowned photographer, Takeo Spikes is here. The 2nd edition of Behind the Mask is out now. It's a fantastic book. It's your photography, looking at some of the great linebackers of all time. Let's get the website out there, behindthemaskbook.com. You got a big event in New York City tonight. And now let's talk some football. And I wish that we could talk about stuff on the field, but we have to start with off the field, because you have the players and the players union, you have some of the owners and a handful of players meeting at the league offices this week. And, you know, Michael Bennett said something really interesting. I know you're a big fan of his. He said that before you can move forward at all with any discussions about anthems and about how they're going to go about talking about social injustice, you have to address Kaepernick first and why he doesn't have a job. Do you agree with that?
No, I do agree with it, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that's the reason why we're here. That's the reason why we're talking about all of this, because Kaepernick started the awareness. And this is at the height of it where we are now, this is the biggest it has ever been. And so I agree with him on that, just simply because a lot of it, anytime you want to accomplish anything in life, you first have to start with just the acknowledgement of the reason why we are here. So I understood that.
How do you think Roger Goodell and the league have handled this situation overall? How would you evaluate that?
I thought it could have been, I thought they could have jumped out and been more proactive in the beginning. I think it would not have escalated to this point, but at the end of the day, we are here. So where we are now, bringing players in earlier this week, having the conversations, having guys who are true representations of the majority of the league, I thought it was it's a great start, you know, and I don't want it to be a great start, then it fizzles out. But I'm sure that's the reason why certain guys were brought into that room, because they are very well aware of what's going on, not only in our society, but in our communities. And that's the reason why the big uproar is going on right now.
You mentioned Kaepernick being the impetus for that, and I totally agree. He forced this conversation. But there's also been the side conversation about the national anthem, which sort of blurs the issue he was protesting for in the first place. And yesterday, Goodell said he knows how the fans feel about that, and he and the league think that players should stand as well. Do you think they're excluding a portion of the fan base and some of the players, obviously, as well, in saying that's how the fans feel as a blanket statement?
Well, like I said, you have to acknowledge where everybody stands, and everybody has an opinion, and I respect that. I'm okay with that. But at the end of the day, let's start with Colin Kaepernick and the reason why. And the thing that I hate from my personal side of it is we as the media, we have a tendency to try to change the narrative. Every time I talk about it, I'm not changing the narrative, because the narrative is he took a knee because of social inequality, social injustice, police brutality. And these are some of the things that in order for us to move forward, I say us because I still consider myself somewhat as a player, but what I do know, I am an African American. And the only reason why it wasn't me when you see police brutality or social injustice is because I wasn't there at that time. So I'm not too far removed to understand that, hey, just because I'm Takeo Spikes, it's not going to happen to me. No, it could have happened to anybody at that time. So I understand it, and that's my take on it.
It's really interesting when you see Goodell referencing the sponsors. Do you believe that is a big part of this? And is that something that the players should have to be acknowledging too, that sponsors may be leaving if guys continue to protest?
Well, that's the business side of the game. And if you are a true businessman, you have to acknowledge that fact, because at the end of the day, I can't get paid if my boss is not getting paid. And so we all understand that it's a chain of command, that things have to go down. But to go to show you that it hasn't went away, and guys know that it's still true to their heart, it goes to show you how important it is to them. Because at the end of the day, what we all have to realize, we may not be able to get change right now, but it's for generational change. And if you can spark that, have these tough conversations, have change come about, then ultimately your son, who's eventually coming up, who wants to be like you, he will benefit off of it. Your son's son will benefit off of it.
Obviously, the owners play a role in this. Jaguars owner Shad Khan said that President Trump is jealous of the NFL, and that inspired what he's been saying. What do you think is the motivation for Trump's attacks on the NFL?
Well, I mean, bottom line, people say, oh, the money is the root of all evil. No, it's the love of money is the root of all evil. And so, listen, 45, whatever you want to call it, I disagree with a lot of his statements. Sometimes I think he should stay in his place and make sure he tend to matters that really matter. We've had 2 catastrophes as far as natural disasters when it comes to weather. We still have a lot of people in Puerto Rico right now who need help, serious help, even in Houston. Just because the weather is cleared up, it doesn't mean that they don't need any more help. And so for me, I think when you look at football, football is just a small microcosm of life, at the end of the day. And so don't make it bigger than what it needs to be. But it goes back to money. And so I'm smart enough to understand that.
Yeah, it's interesting. I have said a couple times, I think we need to be following the money a little bit more. And I actually think that's a way where the players could have a little leverage, because I don't think sponsors want to offend either side, if you will. So I don't think they're really going to go anywhere, even if they threaten to. It seems really different with how the NFL has been, I guess, reacting, I mean, the league, as opposed to the NBA. And the NBA even has a rule that says you have to stand, yet it doesn't seem like there's this sort of divide and just that divisiveness that we're seeing in the NFL. Even the Spurs put out a video, promoting equality. We know Greg Popovich has been outspoken against Trump. Why do you think there's a difference between how the NFL, and this has become so contentious, with the NBA, who seems to have navigated these waters a little easier?
Well, the easiest way that I can put it, when you're dealing with the NFL and employees, when you're dealing with players, I mean, you're dealing with damn near 2,000 players. So is it really possible to get 2,000 minds, come from 2,000 different backgrounds, to be on the same page with the same answer? No, that's not reality. Compared to basketball, you may have 12 to 13 on a roster, a couple of hundred overall in the NBA. And so when you look at the guys who are the biggest influencers, those are the guys who are getting paid more. Those are the guys who can dictate, even though I have a GM, I want this guy on my team. Mm-hmm. And so that's the reason why you're going to have more of a chain of command of more influencers in the game of basketball who can drive that narrative the way that they want to.
You think NBA players feel more like they have an individual voice, and NFL players can feel more like a cog in the machine, per se?
No, I think we both have the same equal platform, but the reality of it is we just have more players. And so you can't, it's no different than you going to a Ford Motor Company, right in the basis to where in the manufacturer, and you trying to get everybody on that same page, speaking the same language, wanting them to believe the same thing. It's too many people. Everybody got vested interest. Is it right, wrong? That's up to them at the end of the day. So I'm just saying, when you look at from a per number standpoint, of course it's going to be easier because the influencers really drive the decision making in the NBA.
I also think they're working on different timelines. If you are an owner of an NFL team, you can always afford to take the long view. I'm talking 15, 20 years. Most NFL players did not have the career you had, not 15 years in the league. They're in maybe 2 years, maybe 2.5. They are on a more urgent timeline. We mentioned your book, Behind the Mask. Now, these are some gorgeous photographs that you have taken, really full of emotion. I want to ask you about something that's a little less gorgeous right now. And I'm going to use that as a transition to talk a little bit about Gordon Hayward just for a moment, because he's likely to miss the season due to this gruesome injury. What's the worst injury you've ever seen?
The worst injury I've ever seen was, that was pretty close. I would probably say that's the worst injury that I've seen. But the worst injury that I've been around at that date to where it was completely life-changing was an ex-teammate of mine when I played in Buffalo. Kevin, he broke his neck.
I know who you're talking
Kevin
about.
Everett.
Kevin Everett. He almost was paralyzed.
Yeah, he was almost paralyzed. And he was actually paralyzed, and he had, God willing, everything came together, and he was able to learn how to walk and everything. But that was so scary, and it really slowed everything down and put it into perspective, understanding that as a football player in the National Football League, or just period, your window of opportunity is so small. Even though you can be on top of the world 1 minute, it makes you realize you have to take advantage of the monetary opportunities when it's presented to you.
It's so crazy. I remember that game, and also there was a very small detail where there was a new medical innovation that said if you have a spinal injury, instead of putting heat on it, which you always should have done in the past, it was put cold on it. The doctors in Buffalo did that and saved his life, or his ability to recover. Sorry about that.
Now, when you're interviewing all these guys for the book, all these linebackers, you talk about an injury like that, and of course we know what we know now about brain injuries. How often do former players talk about the after effects of playing football?
Now that I'm a former player, it probably comes up, but it never comes up in the conversation of, oh man, you remember this injury? It's more so, I know with me, but when I get out of the bed every morning, I'm dragging my feet because my back kills me, you know, every day. So it's more so in that nature, guys joking around with each other. Come on, man, you need your cane today? You know, just trying to motivate each other and get you moving a little bit.
I know players have talked about that they want to check in with each other a little bit more.
Yeah.
Now they've seen some of the effects of the, you know, repeated hits to the head. Do you find you're doing that? I mean, you're photographing some of the greatest linebackers.
Yeah.
Do you also find that you're calling guys that you used to play with just to say, hey, how you doing?
Yeah, absolutely. And God rest his soul, Cortez Kennedy, he died, and they came up with the initiative. I can't remember, I think it's the 96 check, if I'm not mistaken, but take time out of your day to check on one of the guys who you played with, and you would be surprised the type of reaction that you get. Not necessarily saying that it's bad, but a lot of times guys are just lonely. And we started playing this game at 7 years old, 7, 8, 9 years old. And if you're fortunate enough to play as long as I did, I retired at 36, so 29 years out of my life, I was playing organized football. It's always a good thing to be able to talk because we don't get that anymore once we leave that locker room. People ask me all the time, do you miss playing? No. But what do you miss? I miss being around the guys. I miss being able to be in an environment to where I can just say what I want to say and nobody is looking at me as if I have a malice intent trying to hurt somebody's feelings. It's having truthful dialogue, black, white, Hispanic, and everybody come from different places, but we up under one roof trying to achieve one common goal.
You probably don't miss it because you're so busy. I mean, you've got the Behind the Mask book, the NFL films feature on your photography. What got you into photography?
Well, I was always infatuated with chasing greatness. That was one. Two, people ask me all the time, well, how did you achieve this? How did you attain so much in the period of time when you played? So I said I would document my story through my book, through my photography. And I started thinking about it, and I was like, you know what? I can make it even a little bit better by bringing in other Hall of Fame linebackers to share their moment of greatness of how did they become that outlier. And so that's how I came up with the concept, and it took me 2 years to complete. I went around the country, different places. Chuck McNarick, Mike Singletary, Derek Brooks,
Cornelius
Bennett, so many guys, man, and had a great time. Harry Carson right here in the Big Apple, spent the day with him and just picking their minds and their brains because I feel like we're at a time right now to where it's very important that, you know, when people look at athletes, celebrities, or if you're on TV all the time, we get instant credibility, but at the same time, sometimes kids want to be us, they aspire to be us, but they think, oh man, he was just blessed with that opportunity or he was blessed with that skill, but that's not true. And so part of the reason why I came out with this book is to show people that it was the defining moment. Everybody has those defining moments. And it's important that you realize when you have that moment at the time, and then it's even more important to put the blinders on, focus, and challenge yourself to say, you know what, regardless of whatever may happen, I'm gonna give it everything I got, and I'll just see where I end up.
No, you're a motivational speaker. I feel like I have to get up right now.
Well, let's get up and play.
We're in the moment, though. We're in the moment.
Go.
Okay, but there's always that kind of one, maybe a photo or something that would spark an emotion in you to make you say, I want to do that. Is there a famous sports photo that you ever looked at that you said, man, I want to be able to take my audience to the place where I am right now?
I don't think it was necessarily one photo, but I will tell you this. It started with my mother. And my mother, she was great at capturing the moment. But the more you look at that moment she captured, it was blurry. And so what really got me hooked, it was like, Ma, give me the camera. Let me show you how to take a picture. So it was boom, boom. Before I knew it, I was hooked. And so that's what really kind of drove me into the game of photography.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Amazing. Of course, the book, it's called Behind the Mask. You can see it right there. BehindTheMaskBook.com is where you can find more information. Got the big party tonight. Really some phenomenal photographs. My favorite is the Kevin Green at the back with his kids sitting on the dock. That's pretty cool.
I had so much fun shooting Kevin Green, and want to urge everybody, especially tonight at the DL, 95 Delancey Street, come out, going for a great cause. Celebrating another good friend of mine. It's a charitable component with that. Two-time Reds, former NFL 10-year vet, also played a year here with the New York Giants. And we're teaming up with him to give part of the proceeds to his foundation, which is called Beyond the Burrows. It's been in existence for 10 years now. So we want to give these kids an opportunity for more opportunities to get scholarships to go to school. And that's exactly what he's been doing over the past 10 years.
BehindTheMaskBook.com. If Nick Saban was like, I want you to come shoot my portrait as an Auburn alum, what would you say?
Nick, how fast you want me there? I need to come and talk to your team. Give them a copy of Behind the Mask. It's all about being an outlier.
I can't believe what I'm hearing. I thought you'd say, no way, no how, I'm going to take a picture of an Alabama guy.
How did we start this conversation off? It's all about the money.
Takeo Spikes, thank you so much. Congratulations again on the book. Have fun at the party tonight. Good things for a good cause.
Thank you.
Welcome to SI Now Live's weekly fantasy stardom and situm. I'm Robin Lundberg with the fantasy exec, Corey Parson, who's feeling good in that Yankees cap.
Feels pretty good.
Yeah, with that new blue Yankee on.
Yeah.
Who but me, right? But first, we'll start with the executive decisions from the fantasy executive. Who are your starts this week?
Before we get to that, I got a couple of quick things, right? One, the Detroit Lions and the Houston, I'm about to say the Rockets, and the Houston Texans on bye this week, so you got to get those players out your lineup. Also, Aaron Rodgers owners, I know you're scrambling in a bit of a panic mode right now. Calm down with the crazy trade. Stop sending Kareem Hunt, to your co-owner, to your league mate for a guy like Marcus Mariota. It's quarterback options that we can stream week in and week out. We'll make sure we get that done. So let's start this week with a quarterback that you can stream. That's Tyrod Taylor. Listen, the Bucs passing defense is able to be had so far this season. 10 touchdown passes, over 300 yards per game in the air. So get Tyrod Taylor in your lineup this week. If you have quarterback issue, a Matt Stafford owner, a Deshaun Watson owner, trying to figure out how you get past the Aaron Rodgers thing, I would get Tyrod Taylor as the number one streaming option this week. He doesn't really have the weapons, but he does have Shady, and he does have Nick O'Leary. Another player you want to start this week, James White. Should have been Super Bowl MVP. I'm only starting him in the PPR. The snaps are going down for James White as we see Dion Lewis start to get healthy. I think you line up everybody in this game right here. Fantasy fireworks, James White, Dion Lewis, get him in your lineup. You can start him. Mike Gillislee, I'm a little bit worried about. Finally, Amari Cooper. Has he been the biggest dog in fantasy this year, or has it been Sammy Watkins?
Ooh, I think it might be Cooper because Watkins got moved, and so it changed your perception a little bit. Cooper went in as a guy with high expectations. In
PPR leagues, the Kansas City Chiefs defense is giving up 33.5 PPR points a game. Now, Michael Crabtree is going to be the guy they focus on, look to take away. I would get Amari Cooper. Listen, I know he's had a case of the yips, the drops and everything, but I want to be patient with him. I understand a lot of people are sending this kid to the bench. They're sending him to the waiver wire. But give him another shot this week. I think Amari Cooper comes up in the big spot, and the Oakland Raiders get the W this week.
Who you sit down this week?
A streaming option to stay away from this week is Andy Dalton of the Cincinnati Bengals going up against that Steelers defense. They only allowed just over 100 yards per game to air attacks, not to mention the fact that they've sacked the quarterback close to 20 times this season. So I think you get a down game from Andy Dalton and A.J. Green. You always start A.J. Green, but if you're out there looking for streamers, like I said, Matt Stafford, Deshaun Watson, you lost your quarterback. Andy Dalton is not one that I would use this week. I would even use Huntley over Andy Dalton.
Who else is sitting down?
Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch is a hero. I understand this. And everybody wants to pardon Marshawn Lynch, but you got to leave him on your bench this week. Going up against that tough defense, they've only allowed 4 rushing touchdowns. Marshawn, we're seeing his yards per carry underneath 4, not to mention his snaps are getting a little bit lower. So I don't like Marshawn Lynch this week. Tariq Cohen, our buddy from earlier in the season, the targets are going down in the passing game, so no use in the PPR. Try to give him the ball between the tackles, not really working. I think he's averaging about 2 yards a carry. He's an RB4 moving forward. Jordan Howard solidifies that role moving forward. He's an RB4 moving forward, even in PPR leagues. I know how much you love Tariq Cohen. Earlier in the season, he was giving you those numbers, racking up those targets, but with the rookie quarterback, you got to sit this young man down.
SI senior writer Ben Ryder is here to talk some baseball. Not only did the Yankees take a 3-2 lead in the ALCS, they chased their nemesis Dallas Keuchel in 4 2/3 innings, tagging him for 4 runs and 7 hits. Are the Yankees now going to win this series?
You know, I think back to Game 4 of the 6th inning. It looked like the Astros had this thing all but locked up, right? They had the lead. They had Keuchel followed by Verlander in the next 2 games. This thing was over. Now those odds have completely flipped. And I think what you really have to do is start by looking at the Astros offense. This was the best offense in the league in the regular season. They averaged 5.5 runs per game and nearly 10 hits per game. In these 3 games at Yankee Stadium, they've scored 5 runs and had 11 hits total. They've been absolutely shut down. I'm very surprised by the turn here.
Impressive pitching performances, Sabathia, Tanaka, and the Yankees getting some hits now, because it wasn't that long ago we were talking about Aaron Judge's postseason struggles. Now he may be the MVP of this series. What changed in his approach?
I don't know if anything changed. I think he might have stayed the course and all of a sudden it started working. You know, last night in the Astros clubhouse, something Dallas Keuchel said really stuck with me. He said, I made one mistake tonight. He said the pitch that Starlin Castro hit for a double, that was a mistake pitch. Everything else, the Yankees were hitting my best stuff. He was doing what he was trying to do. This is one of the best pitchers in the league, one of the best pitchers in the world. And the Yankees, led by Aaron Judge, were turning it around anyway. That's a scary state of affairs for the Astros. And one more thing I think this series has shown, I know we're not supposed to think this way anymore based on small sample size, but Aaron Judge is the MVP. The Yankees really go by how he's doing, and we've seen that no more clearly than we have this series.
Now, he struggled against the Indians with their bullpen and the pitching staff there. How do you think he would fare against the Dodgers in a possible matchup, considering their pitching staff?
I think we're going to see the exact same thing, right? This is what Aaron Judge is at this point, and it's pretty good on the whole. He's going to strike out a lot, especially if he winds up facing Clayton Kershaw and Yu Darvish, but he's going to have some massive game-changing hits mixed in there. Look, you got to look at the bottom line for Aaron Judge, and the bottom line is this is one of the best hitters in the league.
Now, the Cubs did stay alive against LA. Is there any chance they can come back and make that a series?
No. Well, yes, like 5%, right? Under 5%. There's always a chance when you haven't lost yet, but things are stacked up against them. You know, Wade Davis was heroic. I don't like to use that in sports terms, but what he did last night, pitching 2 innings, obviously giving it every last bit he had to get those final outs, that was great. But what that means is they don't have him tonight, right? So they're going into a matchup against Clayton Kershaw with a bullpen that suddenly becomes suspect and without their closer, most likely. Just seems like it's too far to climb for the Cubs.
Be pretty good for baseball if it's Yankees-Dodgers. Ben Reiter, senior writer for SI on baseball. We'll be back tomorrow on SI Now Live at 10:30 a.m. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live and have a good one.